Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Two Grown Men. Once again, my name is
Welcome.
Yemi. Hi, Olami. How are you?
No, bad. Doing a play there. This topic, we did say in our last video that we were going to continue the series of this book, a service. And is it a service to the nation? Is that the
A
name of the
call
book?
to service.
A call to service. Is that what it's called? Is it
Wow,
a call to
something
service?
like that.
Yeah. We need to get the name right. What's the name of the book?
I don't care.
Oh dear. Oh dear. A Journey in Service. That's what it's called. A Journey in Service. So that's IBB's book. We did a previous video on this. Please check out the previous video. We'll put in the link in the description below. Allow me. That book was layered with so many chapters and so many revelations and so many things that were not revelations.
Hey! Wahala, wahala, wahala.
I think we should do a bit more on this book.
Yeah, sure. Tell me, apart from the obvious, what else about the book stuck out in your mind?
So what stuck out in my mind? So the couple of things: the oil windfall money.
Mm-hmm. No, he's never going to talk about that.
Yeah.
You think I was going to talk about that? I'm like, oh, by the way, that money, me and boys, we shared it. He's not going to say that, though.
So we could talk about that,
Feel,
or we could talk about the coup. The his account of the coup, the 1966 coup. So what's your preferred? Should we talk about that?
Start with the coup. Why not? Might as well jump in with both feet.
Right. Okay. So my recollection of the coup and with the things I know about the coup, things I read about the coup. So first military coup took place January 15, 1966, which led to the overthrow of Prime Minister Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa's government and pretty much ended the parliamentary system of governance in Nigeria. So there were young military officers. I think they're all majors, 5 majors in total, led by Kaduna Chukwuma Nziogu. And this resulted in the assassination of key political figures in Nigeria, including Samadu Bello, the Sardauna of Sokoto, Akitola as well, who was the premier of the West,
Western region,
and so many people that were killed in this bloody coup. So Babangida was a young lieutenant in Kaduna, and he talks about him witnessing firsthand the assassination of Sir Amadu Bello. He talked about how the atmosphere within the military was tense, it was uncertain, there was a lot of fear, confusion. But what a lot of people have been talking about, including FFK and some others, people have been on both sides, on different sides of this revelation in the book. Babangida addressed the widespread perception that the coup was ethnically motivated, right? Because 80% of the major coup plotters were of Igbo origin, which is a major region in Nigeria. So there were 4 Igbo officers and 1 Yoruba officer. So he challenged this narrative, said, no, the motivations were more complex. It wasn't just about ethnic line. The fact that they were all majorly, 80% were majorly Igbo doesn't make it an Igbo coup, is what he's saying. Now, people have started to talk about it. Senator Oji Kalu, he commended Babangida for clarifying this misconception that Igbos orchestrated the coup, and that such narratives had caused ethnic tensions in Nigeria, while other people came out to say no, it continues to be. What's your take?
You know, I remember reading the books at that time, Why We Struck, and there's another book. I remember reading those books when I was much younger. And I think I read those books a couple of times, just talking about the early days of the coup. The issue of whether it was tribal in nature, I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't think but it's suddenly going to go away because Babangida said, oh, no, it wasn't a tribal coup. I think there are those who are determined to believe, or there are those who believe what they believe. There are those who are determined to believe what they believe. I remember in the lead up to the last elections, which were very divisive, especially on tribal lines. And I remember in one of the WhatsApp groups I'm in, somebody raising the issue of tribe, because obviously PCB was on the ballot. And this man was talking about not being able to trust the Igbos. And he was talking, and he was using the first coup as his example,
Yes.
So this man is clearly in his 60s. These are deep rooted sentiments that I don't know if they go away just because IBB came out and said, oh, by the way, it's not true.
So I think people are also, I think IBB also plays with words here, because he described the coup in the book, and this is from his own words in the book. He said it was having the coup had an unmistakable ethnic coloration. Right?
Coloration,
yeah, an unmistakable ethnic coloration is what he said. And so some people are interpreting that to mean it was an Igbo coup. Some other people are interpreting that to mean the motivations were more complex and not entirely based on ethnic lines. So just like you said, it doesn't seem as if we have come to...
It doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, and that's the thing, when you play with words, you can be in the middle. But Fani Kayode, I mentioned Fani Kayode earlier, and he is obviously still very, very close to that time. Why? Because his father, of blessed memory, Remi Fani Kayode, was directly affected by this coup because he was deputy premier of the Western region at that time. He was attacked and detained during the coup, but he survived. Unlike Akitola, who was the premier, who was killed during that time. So, I mean, what do you think this means for national unity, for closure? I mean, what can you say about this?
Nothing. I don't think there's any impact. I don't. We're not a culture that's digging deep into our history.
Yeah.
I don't think so. This book, for example, in different countries where research was still valued, there would be university courses, there'd be research degrees or research programs based on the events that made up this book. The coups are one thing, the 1966 coup, the counter coup, the Civil War, and the events that happened after. Those are monumental events in Nigeria's history, right? And you'd find people being able to read about them, discuss them at length, research them, and present various perspectives to them within an academic environment. Is that going to happen here? And is there going to be is it going to be relevant? Anything that comes out of it, will it be relevant? Are we going to learn from it?
It's not as if we're going to now find those people, jail them, kill them, give money to people that were...
we won't even learn the basic lessons. In 1993, Professor Humphrey Nwosu of blessed memory,
Mhm.
conducted a free and fair election. You've not, now we tried again in 1999. And since 1999, you and I cannot say that Nigeria has conducted any polls that you would say
It's as
beyond
free and
reasonable doubt
fair.
was free and
Mm.
fair
Yes.
as that one that was conducted in 1993.
Yes, so yes.
Despite advances in technology, in logistics, despite the fact that the world has moved on. Look, we had a gathering where the people that sacrificed the most, people who were in the trenches, as it were, people that ran into exile, people who lost their comrades at arms, people who lost their brothers, people who lost their friends, people who lost their properties. Those guys were sitting in the same room as IBB clapping.
I remember. I saw it. We showed the video now. We showed the video in the last video.
Who do you think is going to feel pain or going to learn the lessons from this? And how do you think those lessons will be applied?
Mm.
Who is going to learn the lessons?
Who?
I feel like see the person.
No, you're right.
That's not who we are.
Yeah.
That's not who we are.
It just seems that history just continues to repeat itself. If there are no lasting changes, that's what this is just telling us. So I'd like to move away from that and move to some other parts of the book. We discussed the annulment in our last video. Please check it out. We'll put the link in the description below. Can we talk about SAP for a minute?
What is he going to say? Is he going to turn around today and say, oh, SAP was an error? No.
Mm.
Is he going to turn around today and say, oh, I acknowledge? He's not going to do that now.
Okay, here's a question.
So,
okay.
Well, go on.
What does this book do for his legacy? Yeah. From a reflections point, from a personal insight into leadership lessons, and on his legacy, do you think this book has added to his legacy? Do you think he'll be seen as, at least he spoke, at least he came out and discussed it, at least he addressed the questions that people had for some time? Or do you think he'll be judged harshly to say, you had this information for 32 years, it took you 32 years to say it, and then you came out with the information and you still left us with questions unanswered? Does this help his legacy, or does this tarnish his legacy?
I think it helps his legacy somewhat. I think the fact that in the end he came clean, say what you may, he
still
will argue, I
clean.
came clean. You know, he could have left the truth. He could have left his memoirs with the stipulation that you publish it after I die.
People do that.
People do that.
Absolutely, people do that.
And you'd have had you'd still be saying everything you're saying now, but you have no recourse. As things are now, there's still the hope that he might shed more light on the things that happened, or that somebody else might come forward. Now that he's said so much, Nduka Irabo is still very much alive. So maybe Nduka Irabo might come out and say something. I mean, because the other principal actors are late, right? Abacha's late, Ikomu is late. But maybe somebody's left somewhere, or somebody recalls something. There was an assistant, a secretary. You know, maybe there's somebody out there who remembers something, who can come out now and say, "Oh, I refute this, or I support this particular claim because it backs XYZ evidence that I had." You know, somebody who had the evidence before and was unwilling to speak up. I think could feel more emboldened now that IBB himself has spoken the truth. So somebody that has evidence to support IBB now has every incentive to bring that evidence out, because now there's no. If you were afraid of bringing out the evidence before, what are you afraid of now?
It will probably be. I mean, you know this. It will probably be a secretary. Secretaries are the ones that usually record decisions made at meetings. A secretary to the government, secretary to the Armed Forces Ruling Council.
It could be
There's
anybody.
no
It could be
decision that
anybody.
they would have taken that would not have been documented. But then a secretary is not going to unilaterally release information without the CEO or the chairman or the president or whatever you want to call that person sanctioning it to say, okay, I give you the permission to release this information.
It could even be somebody's memoirs.
Could be. So what I think this is, I think this was personal. Allow me. I think this was personal. He's an old man. He's 83, going on 84. He said that accident of history is most regrettable. Verbatim from the book. The nation is entitled to expect my expression of regret. Those were his words, verbatim. I think this was a personal thing for him. He's probably had a strong desire for closure and some kind of reconciliation, right? And like you said, try to make an attempt to reshape his legacy in the eyes of the Nigerian public. Because look, let's be very clear. He's lost a lot.
What has he lost?
He lost his wife. He lost his health.
He's an old man. He didn't lose his health because of June 12th.
No, I'm not saying
his wife because of June 12th.
I'm not saying he did. I'm saying he's lost a lot. And sometimes when people lose a lot, it makes them reflect. It makes them want to seek personal closure. It makes them look back into the annals of history and say, wow,
fair point.
I got this wrong. I got that wrong. I've made this mistake. I've made that mistake. I don't want to go to the grave without coming out and saying I made mistakes. Now, how people now take those mistakes is out of my hands, but I've done my bit. It could be that. I don't know. I just think it's a bit. I think it's personal. I think he needs that closure. And as he said, maybe the next few days to weeks to months, years, whatever, he will probably still address. This could be just one-off, and like I've addressed what I want to address, and that's it. Or it could be he will still speak. I mean, look at the people there at the book. He will still speak about it in interviews to address some things. But I personally believe no head of state, no president, no prime minister, no king or queen leaves this earth without taking some secret to them. Not one.
But actually, no human being. Not Tony Blair. It's general. There's no human being, Yemi. There's no human being that leaves this planet without taking some secrets with them.
Aha. Now talking about people that are of this level. Yeah. There will always be some certain things that they will hold to their chest. Or they know that if I deliver this thing over.
What are your thoughts on SAP? What were your thoughts on SAP?
I remember SAP. SAP was in the 90s now. So, guys, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and comment. SAP stands for Structural Adjustment Program. And it was introduced during IBB's time. Was introduced, I remember, I think 1986. The aim of SAP was to restructure our economy by reducing government intervention and promoting privatization, if I remember, and trying to get some direct foreign investment. But the policies, in my opinion, led to the opposite, right? There was a lot of poverty that came after this SAP was implemented, inflation and social unrest. So now, is is it that SAP was bad itself, or was it the implementation, or the fact that SAP was mandated from foreign powers? So what am I talking about? So SAP was an initiative prescribed by the IMF and the World Bank to address our economic crisis. So it was not an initiative that we did on our own. It was something that the West imposed on, something that the West said we should do. There's no way the West can tell us to do something and they will not have their own interest. That's number one. So what was happening in the country for them to even say SAP should even be implemented in the first place? So the World Bank and the IMF came up with this initiative in the 80s. Okay, developing countries like Nigeria that are facing economic crisis, they need to stabilize those economies. In Nigeria's case, SAP was a response to trying to balance our payments deficit, because we're importing more than we're exporting. Something that we kind of like learned from the 70s. That's one of the things about oil boom that Nigeria got very attached to this importation culture that has refused to go. This West is best. Something has to be imported for it to be good. So we're actually importing more than we're exporting. And when you do that, it kind of like leads to economic instability. There was also pressure from IMF and World Bank. Why? Because these two institutions offered financial aid to Nigeria on the condition that Nigeria adopted SAP reforms. Like I said earlier, there's nothing that they will give you or they will give you for free. You want money, we'll give you money. But
you had
you
to
have to
adopt the
implement
conditionalities.
You have to implement this SAP, and this SAP is for us, it's not going to be for you, right? So what were the features of this SAP? It meant we had to massively devalue our currency, which gave us less purchasing power when we needed to buy things from the West, right? Then there were import restrictions lifted, which encouraged foreign trade, like I mentioned. Then government-owned enterprises were privatized to reduce public sector spending, but you know how that goes now. If the people you sell it to don't have the best interest at the heart of the country, you are just selling government-owned enterprises into private hands, and corruption and the rest of it gets involved. Then subsidy. For those of you who that know a little bit about subsidies, not today that subsidy started though. So subsidy was removed. Full
Some
fuel
subsidies
and
were removed. Some
they were
subsidies
cut,
were
sorry, they
removed.
were cut. They were not, yeah. So fuel and food subsidies were cut, not removed. This increased the cost of living. Anytime this kind of important subsidies are
Measures,
these measures are enacted, it leads to an increase in the cost of living, what some people call cost of living crisis. Now, the impact of this SAP in Nigeria initially increased foreign investment and diversified the economy, but the devaluation led to higher prices for goods and services in Nigeria. And many Nigerians fell into economic hardship due to subsidy cuts and job losses, because people lost jobs, right?
yeah.
Now, there were protests of SAP. I remember there were protests. People were outraged. There were demonstrations, even before the whole June 12 saga, because this stuff happened in 1986 and it kept on going. So just to summarize, in my view, and the economists will probably buttress my point, SAP did not succeed in Nigeria. But it wasn't just because of SAP in the way it was, in what it meant.
The way it
But
was conceived, it was also the way it was implemented.
it was not, yeah. So there was mismanagement, there was corruption. We were also over reliant on oil. So yes, we talk about this diversification. Let's diversify the economy. Let's diversify the economy, but we still go back to the big daddy, which is oil. And then by early 1990s, Babangida's administration abandoned SAP policies. But those effects, the impacts, continued to shape Nigeria's economy probably till today. There's chapter 7. So he talked about the introduction and impact of the structural adjustment program. He talked about the public reception, which obviously a lot of people rejected it. He also talked about the economic outcomes of SAP. So it was something that he actually addressed in this book. Yeah, and you know, it began the distrust of IMF and World Bank. It wasn't today that started that distrust, that public distrust of economic reforms that are imposed on Nigerians and Nigeria as an entity. Many Nigerians today continue to be suspicious of government policies as a result, especially when you hear things like fuel subsidy removal, deregulation of the forex market, privatization of key sectors. Anytime you hear these things, what usually happens, allow me, mass protests. Yeah, or at least some kind of protest, because it's just that distrust that you guys have come again. You guys have come again. What, Keletufe? What do you guys want? You've come again. Tomato is now going to go to 80 naira from 40 naira. Egg is now going to be $300.
It would be unbuyable.
Indomie, we can't buy Indomie for this price again, because all this grammar they are talking about, deregulation and subsidy removal, is still going to lead to my pocket. How is my pocket impacted? Because that's what the common man is thinking. We can talk about economic policies here and theorize as much as we want, but at the end of the day, when we get to the bottom of it, how is the common man and woman impacted by these policies?
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say on SAP. I don't know if you want to continue on SAP. There are other chapters in the book, like I mentioned.
I read a few things about, from people asking him why he didn't say more about SAP, or why he didn't address more on SAP. I guess as with everything in the book, there are people who are not completely happy with any answer he's given us. IBB,
allow me. There are some things. It has happened. It has happened.
Yeah.
In as much as I know how cold that sounds, but it's happened. How do we learn from this? How do we learn from this chapter? Are we learning in the current? That's my next question. Are we learning? Have we learned from 86, 85, 87, 88, 89, 93? Have we learned? Are we learning as a nation? Because we can sit here and critique the book all we want, but what are we doing now?
Have we done better? No. We regressed.
What is the mindset? What's the mindset?
We had in 1993, we had an election that was conducted without regard for tribal and ethnic lines, right?
Yep.
But we just conducted an election where everything was done on tribal lines. Don't vote for them. They're not like us. They're not like us. So have we learned, really?
Have we learned?
Have we learned? If the people who are meant to be holding IBB to account went to go and throw money at him, can we say we have learned?
No, I mean, you saw it was almost a full representation. Buhari was probably one of the only past presidents.
I have a lot of respect for him, for Buhari, for not going.
Buhari had his reasons, man. He just sent a representative, and it's not going to be there.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, likewise. I think he did well by not going.
I don't like Buhari. I don't like Buhari much, but I give him respect for that one.
For not going.
Why are we going to celebrate you? What are we celebrating? Who are you? And why should we celebrate you?
Yep. Why do you
get
to get that day in the sunshine where in your lifetime, not at your burial, you have almost full representation of, like you said, the movers and shakers.
And Humphrey Nwosu, the actual hero, dies.
And Nwosu, I heard it wasn't well. It wasn't in a good shape, like I heard. Oh man, that's a hero right there.
That's a hero. That's a hero of democracy.
So who are our heroes in Nigeria? Guys, put the real heroes in the comment section, please. Let's get involved in this conversation. Who are our real heroes in that country? Who are they? Is heroism about wealth, status, and position only? Is that what heroism means?
It can't be that. It can't be that.
And how do we celebrate our heroes? Which is the second question.
We don't. Because we don't teach history, right?
What happened to this history?
We don't give ourselves to acknowledge.
Why do we stop?
We don't give ourselves the opportunity to. I don't know. I don't know what we did, but for whatever reason, we decided that we're no longer going to teach history in schools. Anyway, if you're watching this video, would like to appeal for your support. Please give this video a like, a thumbs up.
Yep.
And by all means, please leave us a comment. Let us know if there's anything you'd like. If you'd like to be a part of this show, please send us an email at 2growmen@gmail.com. And please share this video with someone who might enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching us. We appreciate you.
Just a small correction before we go. History was removed in 2009, but was reintroduced into the national curriculum in 2018. I just did a quick check. And this was because scholars, activists, people like Lami and I criticized the removal, that a lot of young Nigerians were growing up without a knowledge of their country's past. And how can they understand the future if they don't understand the past? So due to this government policy,
this pressure, that's good.
Reversal, it was brought back for primary and secondary and junior secondary schools in 2018. So we just wanted to make that correction. Please, if there's anything we said that you want to fact check us on, we're learning as well. We're not like, de facto nobody is. So please put comments, please put anything that we've said that you think that's not quite right. That's fine. Just get engaged, get involved in the process.
Get engaged.
Get engaged. Get engaged. And so looking forward to your emails, your comments, likes, share. Please continue to support us. And
thank you very much
see
for watching
you
us
in the next one.
Thank you. Odaro. Good night.
Odaro.
And God bless. Odaro.